We will now listen to another Ukrainian voice from the cultural segment of society. And we are very proud and honored to welcome Sviatoslav Vakarchuk here on stage. Well, not in person, but remote, because he's back from one of his big concerts in Europe back to Kiev now. I don't even know exactly where we get him and if the line is really standing. And I know that there are quite a lot of Ukrainians here in that room who are really looking forward to see him, because for those non-Ukrainians, Slava is really the voice of Ukraine, and he's the most prominent and important musician. Everybody knows him in Ukraine. He fills the biggest stadiums like, I don't know, the Rolling Stones do here. And I'm very happy to talk to him. He's founder also of Okean Elsiv. So if any one of you didn't know that music, please listen to it, because it's just wonderful music. And so let's see whether technically you managed to talk to him. Yes, here he is. Welcome, Slava.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a great pleasure for me to be here, and thanks for having me here. I just need to clarify, I'm still in Europe. I mean, in Western Europe, Ukraine is also Europe, but I'm still not in Ukraine, so I'm coming there soon, back from this part of European tour.
Yeah, you have been to Helsinki, I think, for a
yeah,
concert, right?
A couple of days ago, yeah.
So I just wonder, how is it? You are taking part in big concerts in countries that are not in war. People are relaxed, people drink coffee, people have no sirens all day long. And then you travel back to your home country. How is that feeling? I wondered.
It's getting better, and it used to be much worse. First 3 months of war, I didn't leave the country, so I decided to be with the people. We went to see the soldiers, the troops on the front line. We actually still do it, but starting in June, little by little, we started going abroad for these charity concerts, Help for Ukraine, which Okean Elsiv does in many cities and countries of Europe. And then it will be not only Europe, places like America and Asia later are coming. And yes, first time when you cross the border, I remember me crossing the border with Poland, and then having coffee in Lublin. And it was probably first relaxed coffee since the war started. So I understand what you're thinking about. But frankly, me and many of friends of mine who I talk to, we do our best to separate our own personal, anxiety and what we need to do. So everybody's anxious, because if your country is at war, you're anxious and you have fear. It's very difficult not to fear for the future of your children, for the impact that the war is making to your country, and even for what's going on in the next not only days but also hours, minutes. But very important is not to let fear control you, and to control instead yourself, your fear and your emotions. So I think me and many friends of mine, and I think most of Ukrainians are doing very well in this kind of controlling their fear, and that helps us to fight. It helps us to having some tactical successes in the war, and I hope we will bring strategic success soon as well. And certainly one day we will win the war, because the Ukrainian nation is predestined to do that, I'm sure.
Well, has your mood changed because of these late military successes? I wonder how you feel. In the beginning, everybody was shocked, I think. And now there are successes, and we see Zelensky on the frontier and in Izum. And I feel a bit better now. I don't know how you feel.
I've been going to the front line since March. So we made 140 performances.
Yes.
On the front line for soldiers. So I've seen the front line not in February, on March, April, May, June, July, August, September, all of these days I've been there. So I'm used to the confidence of Ukrainian military and Ukrainian officers and soldiers. But those who only follow it in the news might be to some extent maybe really shocked or in a good way pleased by all things that they've seen last days. I think this is a result of a very hard work, of a very good, precise tactical and strategic planning by Ukrainian military staff and chief of staff. And I think it's a heroic, I cannot find another word, heroic behavior of Ukrainian soldiers on the front line. They're doing tremendous job. And if not Ukrainian army now, and if not Ukrainian volunteers and those who fight now in the trenches, who are fighting against the enemy, against Russia, who violated our right for future, if not these people, certainly it could be much worse. But I can also add that if not a strong and decisive international help, probably it would be much worse as well. So answering finally your question, I think I was ready for this success, but certainly as for others people, I didn't know when and how it will happen. So it was to some extent unexpected, but to some extent it was, let's say, predicted by me because I saw that our troops are ready for successes like that. But I need to warn you that it's not the end. And I'm quoting Churchill here, and it's probably not the beginning of the end. But maybe this is the end of the beginning. So I think this is exactly what we need to think about. Still very focused, still very, very long way to go, but probably this is the end of the beginning. And now the most important part, the liberating of the country, is going to happen.
We saw you giving concerts for soldiers on the front line, and you have been in Chernobyl, in the nuclear plant, to support people there, and we have seen you in hospitals with the wounded. And also you are traveling through Europe and give concerts, and you collect money for your charity project, because you're also a social and political activist. What are you using this money for right now? Which is the most important part of your work?
There are many sources that we donate this money to. Most important are the hospitals and the equipment for hospitals, because we have so many wounded and injured soldiers that hospitals now are under tremendous, pressure, and they need as much help as possible. Certainly, some of these money we spend for helping our troops, especially buying things like SUVs, vehicles, or some, military uniform. For example, now we're going to have some charity concerts within Ukraine, by the way, which the main purpose of them is to collect money for a winter uniform for our soldiers. So these are different purposes. But let me tell you honestly, I'm very much, grateful to all people who come to our concerts. Not only Ukrainians, but mostly for people from other countries. We see that the majority of our audience now is from different parts of the world, from these countries where we're coming from, native people. So certainly what they do is very important. But I think that even more important is the fact, the mental, the spiritual, the moral part of these meetings in the front and in Europe, because we're spreading word about Ukraine. We're uniting Ukrainians who come, and then I see how inspired and encouraged to do more job, more work for Ukraine. They're committed. So it's very important just to keep Ukraine in focus. And I think these concerts, not only of us, but of all Ukrainian, let's say, ambassadors, are doing tremendous job for that.
I think one thing that stuns the audience from outside Ukraine, and I can talk not only about me, about my country, but I think it's in other European countries is similar, that many people did not know that much about Ukrainian culture. I mean, I started to listen to your music and to love it because of the war. That's very sad to say so, but this is how it happens. And what we all are stunned about is the resilience of the Ukrainian society, the way they are fighting on the battlefields, even ballet dancer volunteering to fight on the battlefields. And also something that struck me is this kind of very strong humor. It's very specific humor in these really dark hours that I noticed through memes and other things in the internet. So how would you describe this cultural roots of resilience of the Ukrainian people that really impresses us?
You described two features that are very typical for freedom-loving nations. So for Ukrainians, the biggest value, and I can tell you, and I can defend my positions, is the freedom of choice, and the freedom of making decision, and the freedom be an owner and master of your own life. And actually, that's why Ukrainians are so resilient, and also why they use humor or why they use music, because they are free people. They are not relaxed in a way that of typical relaxation. You cannot be relaxed when you are at war, but they are in harmony with themselves. So they use all aspects of being a human being. You need to get relief. You need humor to get because nobody's going to really to make themselves happier in the front line, with the conventional things like even alcohol, because it's forbidden and nobody actually does it. And frankly, I can tell you that in Ukrainian army and those who I see there, they're very sober and focused. So not too many things left for you to get a little bit more relaxed. So humor is one of them. And certainly another is when you have opportunity and the security allows it, when you can talk to your families and you can see or even hear those who are beloved. So these are things that supports you. And when I talk about freedom, I mean it. I think for those foreigners who, as you say, were not familiar with Ukraine before the war, I'm trying to tell the difference between Ukrainians and Russians very simple. Ukrainians are the nation which thinks that the country and the state needs to be for a human being. And the Russian tends to think that the human being needs to live for a state. And these are two fundamental, different approaches to life. That's why they're ready to keep patience, to accept Putin, even to support him. While Ukrainians, when our former president Yanukovych, was trying to behave against the interests of the nation, he was thrown away. And that's our Ukrainians. That's who are Ukrainians. And I think this resilience and this humor, as you say, and these, ability to unite in very difficult situation is a strong part of being individualistic in a good way, in being ready to fight for your own freedom. That certainly brings some difficulties as well during peaceful life. For example, our messy politics. But it's a very strong thing when it comes to defending our values. And that's what we're doing now. And when Ukraine says that we are fighting, and our president and other people say that we are fighting not only for Ukrainian future, but for the future of the free world, we mean it. Because if Russia could win, I think they cannot, but if they could win, it means that their way of life could prevail in the world. And we are opposing this idea. We don't want to live in autocracy. We don't want to live in dictatorship. We don't want to live in a country which treats its own citizens as slaves or as building material. We want the country be a mechanism that serves the people. And that's what we're fighting for.
Thank you for fighting that fight. Thank you, Slava Vakarchuk. Thank you. Thank you for taking your time and